What are some very creepy facts? Female mummies in ancient Egypt were always more decomposed than their male counterparts. They discovered that this was because male bodies were embalmed a lot sooner than female bodies. Female bodies were kept at the family home until they started to decompose in order to avoid necrophilia at the embalmers. How could anyone possibly know this? Someone found an ancient Egyptian blog post about it. It was on Tumblr. After getting stung by a cone snail, you don't feel the sting for a little bit. There is no antivenin and it can be lethal. Treatment is basically keeping the victim alive until the venom wears off. Cone snails are pretty freaky. Some of the most deadly ones can kill you in 30 minutes or less after they sting you. Their shells are super pretty too, so any beachcomber should be aware of these creatures and know how to pick up a shell carefully just in case someone might still be inside. One reason that crows and ravens are associated with death is because they would often follow armies as they marched to battle. Being both carrion birds and extremely intelligent, they realized that a large group of armed men marching on one direction meant that there would be a tasty meal of corpses to eat soon afterwards. That's actually pretty neat. I'd like to subscribe to Crow Facts. Thanks. Thank you for subscribing to Crow Facts. Did you know that crows can speak English? Blobfish in its natural habitat looks like a normal fish, but it lives so deep underwater that it doesn't use a normal gas bladder to keep itself balanced. Instead, it has a spongy skin that is slightly less dense than water, which becomes damaged and bloated when fishermen bring it up too quickly. It's not really the ugliest fish. It has just experienced something worse than one of us being thrown into outer space. Between sea level and space, there's 1 atmospheric pressure of difference. Between sea level and 2,000 feet underwater, their upper limit, there's 60 atmospheres of difference. Now I'm sad for the blobfishes. Imagine being taken 5,000 miles under the ocean, having your skull be crushed by the immense pressure, then being called the ugliest motherfucker alive. I'm used to being called that, so we good. When you happen to be murdered, there is only an about 40% chance that your murderer will be found and punished. Edit. A lot of people are asking which country I'm referring to. This is a worldwide approximation. There are obviously countries with higher percentages of solved murder cases, but also some with even lower. For example, in the US there is a 40% chance to get away with murder. In Mexico 90% to get away with it. Organized crime. The overall amount of crimes in that area and war plays a huge role in this. Thanks for the encouragement. The fact that you chose to use when instead of if makes this fact even more unsettling. Purely anecdotal, but my murderer was caught every time it happened to me. If you begin to display symptoms of rabies, you will go crazy and die. There's no cure. Your brain will slowly melt until you're dead. The second you get bitten by anything, you should literally speed to the hospital. Serial killer Richard Chase took any unlocked door as an invitation to come inside. This is the example I use every time my husband keeps the door unlocked. Crocodiles can gallop like a horse. I don't like knowing this, so I am cursing you people with this knowledge as well. Fortunately alligators cannot. So that's how you tell them apart. Yeah, but now I'm confused how to tell a horse and crocodile apart. In the US, if someone is kidnapped and not found within about a day, then there is a 97% chance the kidnapped person is dead. Men who are hanged get a death erection, known as rigor erectus. Pretty awkward for the family, I assume. This is the one time I'd advocate using hung instead of hanged. They said you were hung. And they were right. There's a parasite that enters a fish's mouth, eats the tongue and replaces itself as the fish's new tongue. As a fish, there isn't a cure and it sucks. I keep saying stuff I don't mean to say. A black mamba is the fastest snake, which can slither at a speed of 12.5 miles an hour, 20 km/h. They have neurotoxins which are fast acting. The venom shuts down the nervous system and paralyzes the victim. Its venom is able to kill 10 people and it repeatedly bites. To add on to this, there is an almost 100% kill rate and can kill in 20 minutes. The venom of a black mamba can kill a human in 4 hours if, say, bitten on the ankle or the thumb. However, a bite to the face or torso can bring death from paralysis within 20 minutes. Now, you should listen to this, cause this concerns you. The amount of venom that can be delivered from a single bite can be gargantuan. You know, I've always liked that word. Gargantuan. So rarely have an opportunity to use it in a sentence. If not treated quickly with antivenom, 10 to 15 milligrams can be fatal to human beings. However, the black mamba can deliver as much as 100 to 400 milligrams of venom from a single bite. L. Driver. Tarantulas can swim. I'm afraid to Google this. I just did. Looked pretty cool. Fucker was huge. Sweats profusely. If you live to age 70 you will have shed around 105 pounds of skin. Edit. Because most seem confused. I mean over time, not all at once. That would be terrible. Cool. At least there's one thing to look forward to when I'm 70. Can't wait to freak everyone out when it happens. When creating the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland, they couldn't create skeletons that looked realistic enough, so they used real human skeletons. They've since removed all of them except one. The skull that's over the bed is real. My favorite ride. Damn, that'd have been one of the last ones I guessed. It looks so weirdly elongated. I guess I'm used to fake skulls in movies and such, so the real one looks off. Ducks become cannibals due to boredom. Of all fucking reasons. They can only be stopped by cutting off their mouths. Don't fuck with ducks. Quack is whack. It's finally my moment. Cockroaches have been recorded eating human flesh, both living and dead, as well as fingernails, eyelashes, feet, and hands. The American cockroach and German cockroach are more likely to bite humans than other species. Pretty sure Australian cockroaches do something equally creepy, but as an Australian who plans to sleep at some point in the future, I'm not going to Google it. There are many studies that show they don't like human contact, and will clean themselves rigorously if they touch us. Our skin is very oily and can suffocate the breathing holes in their carapace. So we are the creepy fact to cockroaches. Nice. We're the creepy fact to most life on Earth. There was a speech made for Apollo 11 if they were to die on the moon. Side fact. If it were to happen, people would look up at the moon knowing that crew died there, and their bodies would rest there till the end of time. Not forgetting that the ocean is somewhat like this. Many people died there too, at the very depths of the sea. Also, their bodies would not have decomposed because the moon has no oxygen. Instead they would become mummies. Ancient Egyptians hate him. People don't take their anti-malarial drugs when they travel because they hear bad stories about the side effects and they see native people in the areas living okay without taking pills every day. The truth is, populations native to malaria endemic areas have all passed through pretty intense natural selection for survival and have a host of genes that prevent them from dying or suffering the other worst effects. Also, most of the resistance is built up over time. This is why it's most common for children to die rather than adults. Whatever people have heard about the side effects of the antimalarials, getting it is so much worse. I, fortunately, have never had it, but I study it as part of my work and people have told me about having it and they all say the same thing. It is so awful you can't believe you're even still alive. It comes in cycles, usually 48 hours, and each cycle is agonizing and brings you the brink of death. Sometimes it takes you, sometimes it spares you for another few hours until it starts again. And there are forms that, even if you clear the infection with drugs, it still remains dormant in your system and can come back at any time. Edit. I don't want to freak people out too much. There are drug combinations that can kill every stage of the parasite as long as there is no drug resistance. It's quite common after you die to burp a lot as you have more gas buildup. Dead bodies can also sit up on their own sometimes. Also, if a pregnant lady dies, sometimes the gas buildup in the body as it decomposes forcefully pushes the baby out. Thanks, I hate it. I also hate the post-mortem baby bazooka. God, I hate sit-ups. Now you're telling me I have to do them even after I die. Most people smell different when they're awake. That's my favorite thing to whisper. Mount Everest is covered in frozen corpses because removing them is very unsafe and time-consuming. They are easily viewed from the climbing routes and some are used as trail markers. What's odd is that although the bodies are prominent, in some cases there is no consensus on their identity. Like over the years 2 different people with a similar description didn't return from their Everest climb, and we know the body is probably one of them, but not sure which. Or is it more creepy that some of the bodies are indeed identified, and somewhere out there is a family who knows full well that their loved one's remains are a landmark on the world's most famous mountain? Imagine being totally aware of someone performing CPR but you physically can't move or respond. Well, that's what happens when you get bitten by a blue-ringed octopus. You have approx 6 minutes between being bitten and someone starting CPR to keep your heart and lungs functioning to ensure you survive, all whilst being totally aware of what is happening to you. Neurotoxins are fun. The really creepy thing about this is one story of a guy who got stung, got CPR performed on him and survived, but went blind because he was lying on his back, eyes open, unable to blink because of the paralysis, staring into the sun. Imagine lying there, unable to move, unable to communicate, the sun slowly burning out your eyes and you can't shut them. There are upwards of 300 active serial killers in the world. The part that's insane to me is that people like BTK and Willie Picton were caught post-2000, but were active for a long time decades prior. To me that means there have to be some people out there today that have a high body count and haven't been caught yet. Hearing is the last thing to go after you die. You just might hear the paramedics and firefighters call off CPR. You know, that's actually kinda nice. You know that if ever you have someone dying in your arms, they are hearing you as they die. You know comforting them is working. Unless they have hearing damage. A single tiger has killed over 436 people in India. How many has a married tiger killed? Dolphins are fucking monsters, and although this one isn't as creepy as other comments, but gangs of male dolphins can trap a female, slap her around with their tails, and forcibly fuck her for weeks. Dolphins are fucked up, man. They also kill calves so the female will become fertile faster. And they also practice killing calves by killing young porpoises and seals. Or maybe that's just for fun. Elmer McCurdy was a failed Old West outlaw. His preserved body was put on display in a traveling carnival, and years later he was eventually assumed to be mannequin until he was used on set for the TV show The $6 Million Man. His arm accidentally fell off during the shoot, revealing bone and muscle and that he was a corpse, not a mannequin. The guy died in 1911, but it was only in 1976, 65 years later, that they discovered he wasn't a mannequin, but a petrified corpse covered in wax. This is creepy indeed. There's a spider that gives you a 3H long boner, before you die from its bite. Edit. The boner it gives you is very painful. If it bites you, you might as well dick slap it into next week. Die Hard. They used real corpses in the 1982 film Poltergeist for the ending pool scene. The actress did not know until after the scene was filmed. Not just Poltergeist, but up until the last few decades actual skeletons and bodies were used in Hollywood productions simply because it was cheaper than hiring prop guys to do it. Any old movie you watch, chances are the skeletons are real because you could saunter into any old medical supply store and buy a whole disused skeleton from a university medical department for a reasonable price. CNN has had a pre-recorded broadcast from the 90s which they will premiere during the end of the world. Some species of spiderlings eat their mothers alive. Can confirm. I ate my mother. There are more creatures in your mouth than there are people on Earth. There are more cells of foreign creatures in and on your body than there are of your own cells. The astronauts aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger most likely didn't die until they hit the water miles below the initial explosion. Astronaut and NASA-led accident investigator Robert Overmyer said, "I not only flew with Dick Scobie, STS-51L commander, we owned a plane together, and I know Scob did everything he could to save his crew. Scob fought for any and every edge to survive. He flew that ship without wings all the way down. They were alive." I once read that you should play dead if a bear attacks you, unless they start licking your wounds because that means they plan to eat you. That still haunts me to this day. Edit. If it helps, I'm pretty sure I was reading about grizzly bears at the time during one of my fevered grizzly man rabbit holes. If it's black, fight back. If it's brown, grizzly, lie down. And if it's white, say good night. After raping his blindfolded victims, the Golden State Killer would be super duper quiet and pretend like he was gone, and right when the poor victims would start to move towards the phone or try to untie themselves, he would scare the fucking shit out of them. The human body can be drained of blood in 8.6 seconds given adequate vacuuming systems. Not everyone can afford a Dyson. In the Czech Republic, there is a church called the Sedlec Ossuary that has decorations made entirely of human bones. This happened because there were too many people in the cemetery to bury everyone, and the church leaders claimed that if their bones became part of the church, it only made them closer to God. Nice propaganda spin there, guys. The men of the ship Essex, the true event that inspires the story Moby Dick, avoided islands after being shipwrecked for fear of cannibals. The islands were settled and landing there would have brought salvation to the survivors. Ironically, because of this bypass, the men ran out of food and were forced to eat each other for survival. Jeffrey Dahmer tried to make sex zombies out of some of his victims by drilling holes in their heads while they were still alive and pouring acid into the holes. That's not how you make zombies. An elephant masturbates by slapping its penis on itself. Don't we all? Not creepy. I also masturbate by slapping my penis on an elephant. You're more likely to be murdered by someone you know than a stranger. And the child molester is much more likely to already be in your house than lurking at the playground. If you stifle a sneeze, there's a chance you can damage organs in your head, including eye blood vessels, rupturing your eardrums, and possibly rupture a brain aneurysm. Which means there's a small chance stifling a sneeze can kill you. Better to be the loud ass with the sneeze that can be heard around the world than a dead loud ass cause someone told you to stifle that sneeze. I almost always stifle my sneezes. Since 1900, over 13,000 people have been murdered by serial killers in the USA.